Broadcasting from the heart of Boston, this is the Boys of Beantown, your source for weekly Bruins news, analysis, and updates. And welcome in, everybody. Week number 3 on the podcast here. With you, as always, is Joshua Powers and Austin Bumpus. We have a lot on the agenda today. We're going to talk about the Arizona game last night, a great win for the Bruins. We're going to talk about David Krejci, the starter performing at home, hopefully, what the newcomers are bringing, the Florida road trip. We're going to look ahead at Dallas and review October as well. Austin last night in Arizona, playing Arizona, I should say, at the Garden. It was a great game. 6-0 was the final. The Bruins were a whole new team last night. It was absolutely absurd to watch these guys play.
I know, and I think this offensive spark is going to tell a lot for these Bruins going forward. David Krejci is really bringing a lot to the ice. All these newcomers are really bringing a lot. Last night we saw the first real show of solid goaltending from Tuukka Rask, which I think is going to play a huge part in this big push that we're going to have.
Absolutely. The Bruins were a plus 25 last night. 9 guys were a plus 2 or more, which is absolutely absurd. Colin Miller and Zdeno Chara were each a plus 3. Chara was your ice time leader for the entire team in the defense with 24:57 of ice time, and Louis Eriksson led the offense with 18:41 on the ice. Only 3 more shots to the Bruins than the Coyotes, 27-24 as the recording here. That's not for what the score was. I mean, it reflects on Tuukka a little bit that there's only 3 more shots.
I think it reflects well on Tuukka. I think it reflects well on the offense, too, that we're taking advantage of these opportunities that we're getting. We're taking good shots. We're not just throwing them out there and hoping for the best. We're playing smart. Tuukka's playing smart. He played really smart last night, played really well. Just solid lockdown goaltending, and both of those coming together are always going to get you a good game. And
the Bruins power play going 1 for 4 last night. They are over 33% for the season so far. They're one of the top in the league, believe it or not, which is still continuing. And I will tell you right now, from watching that game last night, the puck movement and the fluidity in the offensive zone and the power play, you never thought they were going to leave. They were averaging about a minute and a half of zone time during the power play. Arizona could not get that puck out. And if you on the opposite spectrum, the Bruins penalty kill stopped all 3 power plays for Arizona. You know, it continues to be a major factor playing into this game is that they can produce on the power play.
And I think it's a good mix, both on the PK and the power play, that we're playing aggressive and defensive at the same time. On that penalty kill, we're good at staying back, knowing your role, and doing what you're supposed to do, doing your job. And on offense, on the power play, we're playing that aggressive style that's keeping the puck in the zone, really getting some good chances off and scoring goals like we haven't really done before in the past.
And the 3 stars last night by 98.5 The Sports Hub were David Krejci, Tuukka Rask, and Joe Morrow. Each 3 of them well-deserving. David Krejci notching 2 goals to keep the point streak alive. Goals number 6 and 7 on the year for him so far. And they were talking last night, it took David Krejci until January last year to get 6 goals, and he has it already. It's not even the end of October yet.
And I think he's performing really well. He's performing past a lot of people's expectations. He's a great talent. I think last year it just took him a little bit to go on that hot streak that we really needed. I think last year if Krejci was on this level, it would have been a whole different team. Really talented player. Sometimes I guess he just gets on these slumps, but I think this is a very telling sign for these Bruins, and if he can keep this up, I think he'll be a very key player in a long run for this team.
Absolutely, and the Bruins had 5 shots last night in the power play, and Arizona only had 1 shot. Which says a lot about the penalty kill. Only have 1 shot over 6 minutes of power play time, and there was a lot of time where it was, Arizona had a lot of offensive zone time. Last night, the Bruins were down almost 4.5 minutes of zone time to Arizona just because the amount of time that Arizona had the puck passing it around. It was quite absurd, and there were certain points where, it looked like it was a penalty kill for the Bruins because of what was happening going on, but they held their own. It's unbelievable.
I know, and this defense definitely, as many think, is not that great. Very young team, not huge on size or anything like that, but I think they're starting to learn what they have talent-wise on defense, what they need to do strategy-wise. Everything's coming together. They're kind of communicating better, and it's really showing on these penalty kills, or if they have a chance or have these times where zone time is in the other team's favor for a long period of time. They know how to defend it. They know how to give Tuukka a little break and really kind of hold their own.
And we all watched last week, we were in Arizona, where Kevin Miller got into a fight, and last night John Scott tried to take retaliation against Adam McQuaid, ended up getting a 10-minute game misconduct for stuff that he said to the ref when he was called for a slashing penalty. And it's actually kind of funny. I look at it as, you're trying to do retaliation, and they were commenting last night as well, and you pick Adam McQuaid. You pick him. Of all the guys you want to try and get retaliation against, you pick Adam McQuaid. Are you serious?
And it's the equivalent, like, it's the poking the bear analogy where last year you don't want to try and fight Milan Lucic or kind of upset him, where this year McQuaid's kind of taken that role. I mean, he's always been just a tough defenseman. He's ready to fight. He's ready to hit you if he has to. And, yeah, that's not the guy you're going to want to poke on the Bruins defense.
No, absolutely not. And, and turning to Arizona a little bit now for more of the, less good and the more of the bad here. Arizona was in Toronto the night before. They had to fly into the U.S. They had to go through customs. None of the Coyotes were at morning skate yesterday at the Garden. And you got to wonder, these travel woes, that has to play effect on the team too, because you're flying in so late. You have to go through all the BS to get back in the country and do all the custom stuff. And then by the time you're done that, you got to go focus on a hockey game now and try and play. It's ridiculous.
But that's something you got to get used to in the NHL. I mean, you're traveling all over the place. You're going into Canada, in and out. You're going cross-country sometimes. It's just part of the business. And, yeah, it sucks having to travel all that time. And Arizona definitely feels that they're a West Coast team traveling all over the place. But it's just something you got to get used to. And I'm sure, at the beginning of the season, you're going to be sluggish. You're not going to be used to all this. But I'm sure as the season progresses and they get more used to that, the results will start to show and it'll be kind of closer games, unlike what you saw last night.
Absolutely. And turning to the goaltending situation now, Tuukka Rask with a shutout last night, 24 saves on 24 shots. He is now tied for fourth in the most shootouts of Bruins history, believe it or not. But looking at Mike Smith, who played last night for the full 60 minutes, 6 goals on 27 shots. And I have it highlighted here. The third period, he gave 3 goals and 7 shots. Granted, all 3 goals were beautiful snipes that were produced. And you can't argue, but I mean, Connolly had one, Marchand had one, and Krejci had one that were just absolutely perfect shots. But letting up 3 goals and 7 shots, that's not keeping your team in the game. 3-0 is still a very, close game by hockey standards. You can still turn that around. You can still produce and try and win that game. But when you're getting with 3 goals on that little amount of shots, you're throwing the game away for your team.
And it kind of seems like the Bruins have become, I guess, Mike Smith's kryptonite. You look at the first game we had against them. Going into that game, he was one of the top goaltenders in the NHL. People thought, the Bruins won't be able to handle this goaltending. Offensively, they were struggling at the time. They couldn't really get it off. If they're facing this great goaltender, it's just going to halt any progress that they were trying to make. But they've shown that they can play Arizona against this tough goaltender, or so we thought, and just go on these offensive tears and just produce at mass levels.
Absolutely. And it's not to say that Mike Smith is a bad goaltender either. I mean, you look at his stats right now. He is second in the league for saves with 247. He's second in the league for goals against with only 25 the entire year. I mean, he is red hot. There's no doubt about that. He made 24 saves in Toronto the night before yesterday, and he had to stop 37 shots against Anaheim on the 14th. He was named the NHL Third Star of the Week because he stopped 67 of 69 shots and recorded 2 wins during opening week of the season. He's a good goaltender. He's a good guy, and the fact that we could beat him and be on top of him like that is a really, really strong sign for this team.
Yeah, and I think on the other end, Tuukka Rask, if he can even mimic this performance or what Mike Smith was doing previously, I think they might have switched roles a little bit. I think Tuukka Rask kind of traded places with Mike Smith. If he can keep that up going forward, he's going to become one of the top goaltenders. If Mike Smith kind of shows this inconsistency that Tuukka Rask has from time to time, then you're going to see these conversations like people have about Tuukka, where should we sit Tuukka more? Now they're going to be saying, should we sit Mike Smith more? And you got to wonder if maybe they should have done that last night, if it would have saved the game at all.
Yeah, and you look at it, too. I mean, Tuukka Rask is an .894 save percentage, if I am correct. But Mike Smith, he has a .908. He's not that much better in the save percentage department. I mean, it also plays onto the team as well, where Arizona is, producing the defense and the offense to help them win the games. But his save percentage is not that high when you look at it.
Yeah, and, I think it's more of kind of Arizona's defense. Before last night, definitely backed up Mike Smith better than what the Bruins have backed up Tuukka. They've, like we said last week, they've kind of left Tuukka out to dry at points. And you have Mike Smith has these guys on defense. You got McCallick, you got Ekman-Larsson. They're definitely helping out as far as kind of a solid defensive performance that isn't going to leave Mike Smith out to dry. If the Bruins can perform consistently like that, who knows what could happen with this team.
Absolutely. We're going to turn now to David Krejci, obviously probably one of the better members of this entire team right now, and I would say he's putting a little bit of the weight on his shoulders of the entire team. He's 1 assist shy of his 300th NHL assist, which is always awesome. He has a 7-game point streak with 12 total points. He scored the first goal of the season for us in Winnipeg. He leads the NHL in points right now. David Krejci is this team. He is that veteran presence who is leading these young guys in, and everyone else has to start mimicking that, I think.
And I think after last season, people might have been wondering why he has that assistant captain spot. But you can tell he's a great leader on the ice. Offensive talent, defensive forward. Even off the ice, I'm sure he's just a great leader. He's kind of pushing this team forward mentally, just giving them that strength where he's scoring all these goals. He's showing that this team can perform. I think it's going to show huge dividends for this team in the end.
Absolutely, and he's averaging the highest average ice time per shift for all offense with 50 seconds per shift. He played 4 minutes and 6 seconds of the power play. He played 41 seconds of the shorthanded. Having him out there in that power play, he had 2 absolutely beautiful goals last night. And having him out there for that power play is making all the difference. It's such a stacked line.
Yeah, he can get those scoring chances off. He's obviously great passing. He's shown that he can score at high levels. He can get these assists. He just makes scoring chances happen, and that's so important for this Bruins power play where sometimes they just seem lost out on the ice. But if you have a guy like Krejci or even a guy like Bergeron out there controlling the puck, controlling this team, and just getting these solid chances, it's going to show results in the end, and that's why this power play has been so successful this season.
And he has 5 goals in the past 5 games. He scored the game-winning goal last night, obviously, when he scored the first one in the first period. He's second in the league with goals, and he's 12th in assists, which I actually kind of find it funny, but total 14 points. He's in first place in the entire league. He's a plus 4. It's 36th in the entire league out of all the centers. And what's crazy to think about is that a couple months back, we were talking about trading him.
I know, and it's one of those crazy things. I mean, even about that Tyler Seguin trade, people wonder, well, what if we didn't trade him? Now with Krejci, you wonder, what if we did trade him? I think it would have been, obviously, looking at these results, you can say that now, but even back then, you would have lost a huge leadership presence on the ice. You can't really trust just Bergeron and Chara to have that veteran presence. Krejci, although last season he wasn't performing all that great, he's definitely a great center that can lead this team in more ways than one, and this offensive talent this season seems like kind of sparked from this the off-season trade rumors, and everything's just coming together for him, and he just seems a little bit extra motivated.
Well, last year, injuries limited him to 47 games played. It's his lowest full season total since breaking into the National Hockey League, obviously for good, in 2007. And it's actually kind of interesting here. We have it where 3 of his 9 career multi-goal games have been hat tricks, which is insane to think about. I mean, a hat trick is tough enough to do in itself, but to have 3 of them in your 9 multi-goal games. And his current 7-game point streak right now is the longest by a Bruin to open a season since the 1992-1993 season, where Juneau and Kvartalov had 14 games each to open that year. He's doing big things, and the question is, can this point streak continue as we go down the road?
Obviously, Bruins fans would like that to happen. I can't see why it wouldn't. He's scoring points at just massive quantities right now at a really high pace. If it's not goals, he's getting these assists. He's creating these chances. I don't see why this can't keep up for the rest of the season.
Absolutely. And, the fact that we didn't trade him, thank God, we now have him. But we're going to turn to a little bit of the newcomers right now because obviously we got some young guys coming in. I'm not talking rookies here. I want to talk about trade guys. We got Jimmy Hayes, Brett Connolly. Obviously, we sent Riley Smith to the Panthers. And Hayes is, you look at him on the ice, he's 6'5", 215. He is a big guy on that ice. And, you're looking at him next to players, and it's almost resembling of Chara. He's just that big.
And that hometown boy is definitely replacing that whole Lucic kind of feel on the ice, that power forward where Lucic kind of brought, I guess, mental strength to the Bruins, where Jimmy Hayes is bringing that same thing. He has that extra motivation, playing for his hometown, playing for pride of the Bruins, and it definitely shows up on the ice rather than just a big forward trying to motivate his team. He has that extra motivation that not many will have, and it's definitely showing up with his size on the ice. He's creating these physical chances and scoring goals.
Well, last week in Colorado, he had 1 goal and 3 assists, so a 4-point night, which is a career high, 4 assists and points in a total game for him. and he had a goal against Philadelphia. He has 3 goals in the year so far, but he came from Florida. We sent Riley Smith down there, and you look at him compared side to side. Riley Smith has 4 goals and Hayes has 3, but also Hayes has more assists than Riley Smith does, and he has more total points. And even though he's a -2, like Jimmy Hayes is a -2 right now, this is a very good trade in my opinion. We got a very solid player that we can rely on, in my opinion, that we can trust each night. And, granted we lost Riley Smith, but still, it's one of those guys where we trade a 24-year-old for a 25-year-old. Hayes is the hometown boy. He comes from Boston, grew up in Dorchester. He's got to be back playing for his team. And you look at it, he even has less shifts than Riley Smith is averaging right now. You look at Jimmy Hayes' shifts, 18, 16, 18, 19, 23, whereas Riley Smith has 24, 28, 24, and then 21 across the board. But Jimmy Hayes has more points than Riley Smith does in less shifts.
And I think it's definitely different playing styles. Riley Smith, obviously a scoring presence. Jimmy Hayes, I think, is a just tough kid who's ready to fight, ready to kind of bang on the boards. And Riley Smith last year for us, I think, was more of just that speed and that kind of like sniping ability that we needed, whereas Jimmy Hayes, yeah, he's scoring, yeah, he's creating these chances, but it's because he's tough, he's in the right spot, whereas Riley Smith was kind of small, he couldn't really fight into those spots like Jimmy Hayes can.
And Hayes has no penalty minutes in the year, which, is sort of an okay thing. You don't want him getting into too many scruffs, but he can also. And, a fun fact here about him, just because I like to say it, he chose to wear the number 11, actually, in honor of a good friend who passed away in the summer of 2014. And his brother plays for the Rangers. And the thing is that when we play the Rangers now, coming up in December, that should be a very interesting matchup to see how the Hayes brothers face each other. And, if a little sibling rivalry going on, maybe?
Oh, definitely a sibling rivalry. Definitely some added motivation there. And those home games against the Rangers are sure to bring some family feuds to the ice.
Absolutely. But do you think it's a good trade? I think it's a good trade.
Oh, I definitely agree that it's a great trade. I love it.
And then I want to look at Brett Connolly as well. He's been breaking in a little bit right now. He was drafted by Tampa Bay, 6th pick overall, back in 2010. So he's 23 years old right now. He was traded to Boston from Tampa Bay for a 2015-2016 second-round pick. And when he comes here, he's got 4 points. He's playing solidly, not stellar point numbers, but he's playing a solid game of hockey, which is all we can ask for from him.
Yeah, I think he's just kind of like playing his role, doing his job. He reminds me kind of Louis Eriksson, who at first Louis Eriksson kind of struggled when he came to Boston. He wasn't that great scoring presence that we were kind of expecting, but I'm sure as games go forward, he gets more comfortable in this system, more comfortable in this new environment. He's going to perform at a great level, and it's just going to take I'm going to say a month or two to really get going and really perform the way we expect him to.
Absolutely. He had a minute and 40 seconds of power play time last night, 15:42 total ice time last night for Connolly, but he led the team in hits. He had 5 hits last night, and there was not a single of the Bruins player that had more than 1 registered hit with the National Hockey League. And being that physical presence, he's 6'2", 193. He doesn't mind getting bumped around. He doesn't mind bumping guys around. You're still the big bad Bruins. And as much as people want to talk about we're changing our style of play, we're trying to be faster, we're trying to pass more, you're still the big bad Bruins.
And I think people were worried after, we've gotten rid of, in the past couple of years, we've gotten rid of Boychuk, gotten rid of Ferentz, gotten rid of Lucic. People definitely worry that, this Bruins team is changing its style. And we've talked about it in previous weeks where this team may seem like it's more of a run-and-gun, quick type of offense, but it's nice to see these guys kind of evolving into these tough players like Connolly and Hayes are bringing that presence on the ice. Chara is still that big body on the ice that's willing to hit you, willing to take these shots. It's more of a well-rounded game, I'd say, rather than just focusing on Boychuk or Ferentz with the defensive side. I think these tough offensive forwards are going to definitely help out.
Absolutely, and looking at going from where we traded Riley Smith to Florida, we're going to bounce forward now. How about the Florida road trip? It's coming up this weekend. We're heading out for back-to-back games, Florida and Tampa Bay. Looking at the stats, Bruins are 43-29 against Florida with 5 overtime losses, and they're 54-22 against Tampa Bay, which is a surprising stat. Starting with Florida, where goals for average is 2.86 and the goals against average is a 2.51. Florida is one of those teams that is branching out and is slowly becoming one of those tougher teams to play.
And I think, like we talked about earlier with the travel woes, just because it's the beginning of the season, it might be a tough game. It's kind of turning into that rivalry that just because it's a Florida team, people think, oh, it's not really hockey. They've got that nice weather down there. It's nice and warm. I was there this past weekend. It was great. But you definitely have this kind of tougher Florida team that you're not really expecting. You're more focused on Tampa Bay, and you have this game first where you might struggle. And like I said a couple weeks ago, it's going to affect your confidence if you struggle in this first game going against a much tougher Tampa Bay team next.
Absolutely, and it's surprising because Tampa Bay is slowly turning into that hockey town in Florida you never expected being that far south. I mean, let's be real here, they all eat baseball and football. But you're going to Tampa Bay, and by the stats, 54-22 with 686 win points percentage. I mean, you own Tampa Bay. And in the stats overall of all the games you play, you own them. And maybe not as of late because Tampa Bay has gotten very, very good. But the Bruins still have a better overall record. They have 118 points against Tampa Bay. The goals for average is a 3.38. The goals against is only a 2.60, which it's astonishing.
I think it's tough to look at overall stats like this. I think it's more of what have you done for me lately. If you look at Tampa Bay, they've had these great runs in the past couple of years. You got Stamkos, just very talented player. I think it's tough focusing more on the overall numbers when you should be focusing on what's going on right now, this talented Tampa Bay team. And, I mean, this Bruins team has been performing well, and if they can keep it up going into Tampa Bay, I think maybe these numbers will ring true. But, I mean, it's going to be definitely a tough game.
Absolutely. Now, once we come back from Florida, we're going to look at the Dallas game right now. We're playing the Stars, and I love playing the Stars because, we traded Tyler Seguin to them, but I think we can crush them. I mean, you look at the history behind it, 76-29 in favor of the Bruins, 178 points, .679 points percentage, and the goals for and goals against, 3.8 and 2.6. It's not even close. I mean, we can crush Dallas. If we played the way we played against Arizona, we can absolutely dominate Dallas.
And they're definitely a more offensive team. You got guys, like you mentioned, Sagan, you got Jamie Benn. They're just very talented offensively. They're not as great defensively, and I think it's going to be a really kind of a true test for our defense. If they can keep up how they played last night into this whole stretch through the Florida trip, come back, play the Stars, everything's just going to go their way. And if they can limit Sagan and Benn, I mean, if they can shut them out, obviously you're going to get the win. But it's really going to be a tough game. If our offense can keep up against this lesser defensive team, then who knows what will happen.
And believe it or not, it's almost the end of October. We're getting into November. Hockey season is almost 1 month in, so we're going to take a look back right now at October. The Bruins are going 3-3 with one overtime loss. There are still 2 games to play, folks, in Florida, as we just talked about. But as of right now, they have 27 goals for and 29 goals against. That's way higher than the league average of 22 and 22. Now, Austin, they've turned it around as of late. That's obvious. We started playing Bruins hockey. We did not play Bruins hockey at the beginning of the year. Where do you see this team going in November?
I like to think that we're going to keep up this pace. If you looked at it a couple games into the season, you would not expect that we're actually average on the win-loss records and points. We're off by 2 on the league average, but we've played less games than the league average. It's tough to think that, wow, this Bruins team is actually on par. And if they can keep performing like they did last night, this team is going to kind of make a name for themselves again and just really push forward on those league averages.
Oh, absolutely. And the .864 save percentage is much lower than the .915 save percentage of the league average right now. But you're looking at Tuukka Rask, who's played 6 games, 360 minutes. Jonas Gustafsson has played 2 games for 120 minutes. And their stats are just abysmal when it comes to looking at the way they stack up. I mean, Tuukka's averaging a 3.67 goals against, while Gustafsson is averaging a 2.5, which is absurdly different. I mean, it's no contest whatsoever. I do want to see Gustafsson play more in November. I know Tuukka had a very good game against Arizona. It was classic Tuukka, but Gustafsson still has to get those games. He's a very quality backup. And you look at it, Ronaldo leads the team right now in penalty minutes with 25. That's partially because of the game misconduct he got for jumping into a guy, which he was not suspended for. And then Spooner and McQuaid follow up behind him. They are the only 3 Bruins members that are above 10 minutes in penalty minutes through the entire month of October. You look at the goals, I mean, everyone is producing here. There's multiple guys here that have 3 goals a game. 3 goals for the month, 2 goals for the month, but everyone's starting to produce.
And that's definitely going to contribute to November if they can keep this up. I mean, they were definitely struggling at the beginning of the year, or at the beginning of the season. And if you were talking about Tuukka, I think if they can balance it out between him and Gustafsson, just kind of give Tuukka the necessary time off, keep everyone refreshed, that'll help out offensively. They won't get sluggish if they can balance everything out. If they can balance out Tuukka and Gustafsson, then who knows how Tuukka will perform and if he can meet the average percentages.
Absolutely. Now, to close out the podcast, we're going to do another installment brought to you by Pepper Brooks. This is Bold Predictions.
It's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for him.
My bold prediction for this week is going to be that David Krejci is going to get at least, and I say at least because there's always a chance for more, 3 points in each of the Florida games on the road trip. At least a goal, I would say, to contribute into that. But he's going to get at least 3 points in each of the 2 Florida games. Austin, what do you got?
I think by the end of November, this Bruins team will be top 5 in the conference. If you look at those teams right now, top 5 right now is Montreal, New York Rangers, the Islanders, Capitals, the Lightning. I think we can squeeze into there by the end of this month if we can keep up this play.
All right, there you go. And that's going to do it for us at the Boys of Beantown. If you have any topics you want to discuss, tweet us at Boys of Beantown or email us at boysofbeantown@gmail.com. And as always, you can find us on SoundCloud, YouTube, and now iTunes. I'm Joshua Powers.
And I'm Austin Bumpus.
Tune in next week for more Bruins news and updates.